In this video, I'm going to show you a tip when you're running your wire for your sprinkler system that most guys have heard about, but very rarely do. Kelly Staggs here, American Irrigator, trying to make you a better irrigator. Consider subscribing, that way you don't miss any kind of tips. Now, one of the tips I want to give you today is a tip that most of us have heard about and we've seen guys do it, but we very rarely actually do this. And sometimes it doesn't matter. Sometimes when you're in a smaller job, this isn't going to make much of a difference. But when you've got long runs of wire, this tip is something you really need to consider doing. And also do it where it makes sense. So let me show you something. Now, one of the things you're going to want to do when you've got particularly long runs of wire, is you're going to want to make a loop in that wire. And so take your wire. In this case, we've got a 2-wire system. And so every so often, you want to take that wire and you want to make you a loop. And you can kind of bend it over, but that way you've actually got a place where it's got some slack. And see, that wire can move like that. So every so often you want to make you a loop in the wire. And the reason you want to do that is because the ground actually does move. And so when you've got a long stretch of wire and it's pulled really tight, if the ground moves at all, what can happen, it can actually pull the wire and break it and pull it apart, which is not a good situation. So what you want to do is every so often, and there's guys that recommend, every 100 feet, couple hundred feet, 500 feet. I've heard of that. I want to say wherever it makes sense for you, and you're in a spot that's like, hey, this is a good spot to do you a little loop in your wire. That's what I want you to do. And because every job is different, everything that you're doing, every ditch, everything is different. Situation, the job, the place. And so where it makes sense to you, go ahead and put you a little loop in. But it is something that is a good idea to do. Now, like I said before, guys have heard about this and we all know it, but we very rarely do it. So what I want to encourage you to do is to start doing this and make it a habit to do this, especially when you've got long runs of wire. Now, there's several other places that you can do it. Sometimes what I'll do is I'll do a loop of wire when I come in and out of a sleeve. That way, if there's any kind of movement on either side, I've got that little bit of extra play and give in the wire. Another good place to do it is when you've got a 90-degree corner or a turn right there. Sometimes in that 90-degree, make you a little loop and then go on to your next valve or your next long run. Those are just a few good places to put that loop in the wire. But always put you some sort of loop to give you some slack in your wire as you're running the wire for your sprinkler system.